Thank you. Ooh. All right, you guys are going to think I'm crazy, but the first thing I want to do, let's see if this works for me, is I want you to stand up and dance with me because we just ate some heavy barbecue and mac and cheese, and we're going to dance it out for just a second. You ready? And yes, the first few people that come up with me and dance do get a prize. If you're dying to come up with me, thank you, Heather. Come on, girl. Heather's up with me. Or Michelle, excuse me. Heather, I see Heather. All right, Elise, yes. Come on up, girl. And we have, who's this over here? Are you going to dance with me? No. Oh, she's going to the stage. She's taking it to the stage, yes. Oh, she's not dancing. Just kidding. Okay, so let's try this. Give me a little clap. Clap. Woo! All right, those of you who are not standing, y'all are toy people. Come on, y'all gotta play with me. All right, we're good. Okay, now you're dying that you didn't come up here because guess who gets a Starbucks gift card? Y'all do.
Thank you.
Oh, you got scanned. I gotcha. There you go, man. Thank you for dancing with me.
Thanks.
Well, thank you for joining me today. I appreciate it. This is the session you are in today, obviously, is, let's see if my clicker actually works. Oh, there we are. Development through delegation. So I'm just curious, stand up if this applies to you. If this statement applies to you, stand and remain standing. I don't delegate because if I do, it's never done the right way. At least half of you. I don't delegate because it takes too long. Stand up if it applies to you. If I went on vacation or got sick, God forbid I would come home to a tornado of stuff to do. Okay? I don't delegate because I have no one to delegate to. A few of you, okay. Have a seat. Thank you for playing along. But yes, you know, we're all thinking, man, delegation is hard. Delegation is time-consuming. Delegation is something that really isn't so fun because I just have to do it myself later anyway, right? It takes too long. Those are all reasons that we all avoid delegating. But I gotta tell you, delegation is actually one of the best ways that you can develop your team to take over higher roles, to keep them engaged, to retain them, and to help with your succession planning. Did anyone go to the succession planning workshop earlier? Yeah, part of succession planning is building your bench, and building your bench means you have to develop your people. So that's what we're going to talk about today. Thank you again for joining me. Now, you might be wondering, who's this chick, right? Who's this chick and why is she up here saying things to me right now? And am I even going to stay awake for this presentation? Well, I hope you do. My name is Courtney Ramsey, like I said. I'm from Dallas, Texas. I have over 15 years of corporate retail experience. So that first started with actually Neiman Marcus. I was hired out of college to go into their buying program. So I was a buyer for a brief moment in time. Quickly realized I am not an Excel spreadsheet kind of girl. It is not going to Paris and drinking champagne on the catwalk like I thought it was. So I left Neiman's, went back to get an MBA, and when I came out of my MBA, I actually joined Zale Corporation as a recruiter, which transitioned into more of an HR generalist role, which transitioned into more of a training role. And that's where I found my love of training. I love being a trainer. I love doing things like that. And then I got to go to JCPenney, all Dallas retailers. I was at JCPenney for the last 10 years, working primarily as a jewelry trainer and a trainer with Sephora inside JCPenney, which let me tell you, very interesting, almost like a Harvard Business Review kind of case study of taking a company like Sephora and JCPenney and bringing them together. Completely opposite ends of the spectrum, but it was a great experience. What I realized is that I love the business of training. I love creating training. I love creating training for small businesses and corporations, all like you. And I wanted to do that full term. I didn't want to keep climbing the corporate ladder. So 2 years ago, I left and I actually started my own business, Courtney Ramsey Speaks. So that's my story. And now I want to learn a bit more about you, and I want you to take the time to get to know the people at your table because 2 reasons. First of all, like Tom said this morning, there's a lot of fun that goes into meeting people at these conferences. And the more people you do meet at these conferences, the better you will enjoy it. Secondly, I want this breakout to be a little different from the rest, meaning I want you guys to talk just as much as I'm talking. Maybe not quite so much, but still, the more we can get things going and talking together and be more comfortable with each other, the more fun you'll have. So turn to your neighbor at your tables, tell them 3 things: your name, where you're from, what you do, and why you don't delegate more. Okay? 4 things. Go for it.
like I have to do everything.
So true. All right, I'm gonna have your attention back to the front of the room. Thank you so much. Okay, so that question was on purpose. We're gonna come back to that in a second. But so remember what you said about why you don't delegate more. But here's a brief roadmap of where we're going today. We're gonna talk about some of the benefits of delegation in a bit after we talk about a bit about why we don't delegate. We're gonna give you a process. Bethany here just said, man, if there was like a process or a thing, I could just like a recipe, I could just step and repeat, that would be fantastic. You're going to get that recipe today. We're going to do a skill practice. Okay, what that means is this is a training, in my opinion, so we're going to give you a chance to practice that new skill today, just in minor little bits and pieces, so when you go home, it feels a little more authentic to you. And then finally, we're going to talk about a brief plan of how you can take this back to your team. Sound good?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, so I want to just do a quick shout out, and we're recording, so I'm going to repeat your answers. I don't want to have the microphone go everywhere, but what were some of the reasons you said you don't delegate more? Shout them out.
Want to get done right.
You want it done right. That's right. What else?
You're not organized enough.
You're not organized enough? Or the team isn't?
Sometimes to feel to delegate. Yes.
Gotcha. That's actually a good
I'm
point.
going to be left out when they do make a decision and they don't tell me.
Really good point. So either you're not organized enough to delegate, or you might be left out when they do something maybe you don't like that decision. Over here?
It's in my head, and then I put it in their head, and then they leave, and I lose it.
Okay. Say that again. So it's in your head. You put it in their head.
They
leave. Oh, and then you let it go.
And then I have to start all over again.
I see. That makes sense. Okay. Yes, in the back.
More to the point of the gentleman wanting it to be done right, I call it ownership OCD. As owners, we have a certain way we want things done.
Yes.
But to the customer, it's fine, but we don't necessarily see it that way.
Gotcha.
That's CDO. C comes first, and then D.
Oh, and I have one OECD employee, and only one, and I don't want to. Two employees that are OCD, they clash.
Really? That's interesting.
He was OCD, and I just cloned him if I could.
Good to know. Okay, that should be an interview question, right? Are you OCD? Because that's a good thing. Michelle?
Not always. I don't think I'm always good at like thoroughly teaching it, and then they're like, well, you didn't teach me how to do this part, and I'm wondering why they don't do that part, you know.
So the teaching part, because
Yes.
a lot of things come naturally to us, right? But when you start thinking about how do you actually do it, you're like, I just do it, and it works. Yeah, I completely get that. One more, over here.
In the case of buying, I feel like it's my store, it's my personality, so I don't want anyone else to put their things in that it may not be reflective of me.
Yeah, it sounds like a trust, like maybe they wouldn't make the right decisions because it's you. And the last one, I saw your hand, I can't let you go.
It's okay. So I delegate like making the schedule for staffing. Manager doesn't do it.
Oh, wow.
So you look forward a few weeks and you expect to see that, and it's not done. And then it's at a point where I feel like I can't go to sleep tonight unless I build that schedule because people need to know.
So it sounds like a lack of follow through.
Yeah.
So you delegate it, but it never got done. So here you are doing it anyway, right? Yes, all those are great reasons. And I gotta tell you, yes, there are definitely some things we can do to build out where we're gonna not hit so many roadblocks. And I feel like delegation is not an all or nothing process. We're gonna talk about how to get around some of those roadblocks you guys just called out. But what I need you to know is we gotta get past the roadblocks because there are so many benefits to delegating. So it actually works. And I want you to think about it from 2 points of view. The talent development point of view, but also the engagement and productivity point of view. From a talent development point of view, as a corporate trainer, what I can tell you about training someone through delegation is it's the best way people learn, and that is learning by doing. Think about those of you that went to college or back in high school, you read a class, you took a geography class, you took a sociology class. Did you actually retain anything in that class? Probably not. You probably retained it for the test and then your brain let it go because you never put that learning into practice. Delegation is fantastic because you can actually get them an activity or a responsibility that is something that is directly related to the role they want to take on, and they have to actually do it. So it makes that learning stick. It's also a lot cheaper than paying money to send them to a training session, right? There are many training sessions out there that are $500, $1,000 or plus per day. Delegation is free. So think about it from a learning point of view. You want to give people things that are directly related to the role, things they can practice doing actually learn by doing. It's cheaper, and last but not least, you're letting them practice this in a safe environment, meaning they have you right behind them to catch them if they fall. right? So this is not like you're just saying, sink or swim, little duckling. You are going to be there right there, helping them and coaching them throughout the way. So when they take it on, they're not doing a free fall. And from a productivity point of view, think about it this way. What happens when you all delegate things that you have to do? What happens to your time? You can go home. You can do something better. Absolutely. So you get more free time back. From their point of view, think about it from an engagement and retention point of view. How do they feel when something is delegated to them? Important. Yes, if it's done the right way, right? They feel empowered in some ways because maybe they're getting to do more than what their job really is, and that's kind of cool. It's something that normally you just do. And they feel like they're being invested in, and that's something we all love. When I was at JCPenney, we would bring all of our new Sephora managers in for onboarding training about 6 months into their job, and we would make it this whole big 3-day experience. And without fail, everyone always said, I loved this because coming here to the office makes me feel like JCPenney believes in me and they're investing in me. The same thing will happen when you actually delegate to your people. They will feel invested in. So there's the reasons why to do it. Now, what if we made it easy? Like Bethany was saying earlier, let's give you a recipe, okay? Without further ado, let's talk about the ASTRA delegation process. Did anyone go to Ron's memory class this morning? I did too. So memory hooks, right? Anchors. ASTRA is your anchor. How easy can we make that? The A, let's talk about what the A stands for. And this is where you can start taking some notes. This is where you want to do the assessing of what you can delegate. What do you think that means? Think through what you can give away. Absolutely. So what I mean by that is, in my heart, I think everything can be delegated in some way, shape, or form, but it isn't necessarily great to delegate everything. What I mean by that is, how many of you have been the victim of bad delegation in your life? Why was it bad?
They couldn't handle it.
They couldn't handle it?
I did it wrong, and then I was like, okay, wait, we did that wrong, let's do it again, and then it just
Yep.
flopped.
How about on the receiving end? Who's been like, someone delegated to you and it was horrible? Yeah.
I had to make this catalog from scratch in a week.
Oh,
No instruction.
no instruction.
I have graphic design background, but if I'm busy processing orders, I don't have time to put brain power to make a catalog.
No time and no instruction? I gotcha. Absolutely. So when we think about what we're going to assess, there are a couple of guidelines I would always give you. And that is, first of all, delegate things that are actually important to your business. Why do you think I'm telling you that?
Because it makes them feel important.
It makes them feel important. Thank you. Yes. No one likes to just receive the grunt work. That really, no one even sees the point of why they're doing the grunt work, right? Maybe you don't even see the point. When you give that away, delegation feels more like a punishment than it does a reward. And we want this to feel like a reward. I'm empowering you. The next thing you want to make sure is it needs to be directly related to the skill that they need to develop or their next role. All right, so again, don't give them just the grunt work. Give them things that will truly come off of your plate and free up your free time, but also help them better themselves for when they want to have that promotion. If you work in a bigger store, a bigger company, ideally delegation will let you give that person some more visibility. So some of the best things that my boss ever delegated to me would let me be visible to the person 2 or 3 roles above their job, right? Because those are the people at the top who are making decisions on who to pull up and promote. Me getting some visibility for that SVP was fantastic. And then last but not least, it should give them the opportunity to build relationships. We all know how important relationships are in this business. There's so much that you have to build around just people you like. People do business with those they like, love, and respect. So the more you can give people an opportunity to develop those relationships, it's going to help their career later on. So when you're thinking through what you can assess, the top 2 bullet points, non-negotiable. They have to be met. The last 2 are ideal. All right, so let's try it out with a little quick activity. But before we do that though, I want you to think about one more thing. I love a Basset Hound, by the way. I had a Basset Hound for almost 16 years. So I want you to think about the people on your team. There are probably people on your team who have very little experience, right? You just hired them. Maybe they are 2-3 months in the job, maybe less. There are those people who have been on your team for a while. They have some experience. Maybe they're doing pretty good. The light bulb is finally going on in their jobs. Then there are those people who have been with you forever. They have a lot of experience. They are fantastic. And you can trust them with a lot of responsibility. When you're thinking through and assessing what you can delegate, also think through about the people on your team and levels of their experience. Once you have those two things thinking through, I want you to think about what you can take off your plate. So with your table group, think through some of the things that are important to your business and directly related to the person's next role or job that you could potentially delegate. Maybe not all at once, but you could delegate some part of it. I'm gonna give you about 2 minutes to talk that through with your team, and I'll get a few answers from you in a bit. Go for it. To talk through for a couple of times. I have a microphone now. I know I should be using this more. What I'd love to do is come to one of your tables. If I could have your attention, please. I'm gonna come to a couple of tables, and whoever wants to talk, just feel free. I just want to hear a couple of the things that you talked about that you feel could be delegated to some, well, to some degree, depending on the person you have on your team. Can we start over here, ladies? What you got?
One of the things is maybe starting a purchase order, not hitting send, but
yeah.
like putting together the bones of a purchase order, like say a crazy errands thing, how many minis of different things do we need? But I review it before it goes off, so you still have some control.
Yes, I like that idea. So the answer there was actually, we talked about this over here too, doing an order, but maybe having that control still of doing the bones of it, but not hitting send until you have a chance to review it. How about over here?
See, whether you're a retailer or a distributor or a manufacturer, the financial aspect of being in business is what's going to keep you in business or not. So the toughest part is, who signs the checks? Who's the last one? But at the beginning of it, who's signing those purchase orders and whose responsibility is it for your turns? Mm-hmm. So that's a tough part to let go of. So if you've got managers that are knowledgeable and are trustworthy, well, you can oversee that, but you don't have to do all that yourself. And that's why I'm trying to talk myself down off the cliff.
We're always having a conversation with ourselves, right? I know. How about over here? What do y'all have?
I did, my aforementioned inventory manager, Chino, we made the title inventory manager because by his own comments, he is far faster than me at checking in orders and getting put away. I often get distracted by customers, by ordering whatnot, to the point that now if he comes in at noon instead of when we open at 10, he tells me to leave UPS. He'll get it, and he does, along with my other employees. It all gets put away. I don't check in orders anymore because I've got other things, the big picture. My wife does all of our social media. I don't do any of our social media. And as I tell new employees, if you don't do all the other little things, like dusting, like cleaning, like remerchandising, I don't have time to do payroll. It's amazing how quickly they'll do all the little stuff.
That is an interesting way of looking at it. If you want to get paid, so you got time to lean, you got time to clean, right? One more over here. Anyone else have an idea of what they could delegate? Not so much? I'm curious, did anyone come up with something they felt like could not be delegated? You're just like, no, not going to happen.
Merchandising, yeah.
So actually the visual of it all?
Yeah, because I mean, sometimes you just have such a good vision of it, and it's
Right.
hard to use words to describe to how to do it.
Especially if you have an artist eye,
Yeah,
which I personally do not. Give me like a planogram all day long, and then I don't have that. So I completely get it. Absolutely. So I know there's lots of times people will say, well, Courtney, how about things like hiring my next person? Or how about having that tough feedback conversation? Are those things, I'm just curious, let me get a read of the room. Raise your hand if you think those things can be delegated. Very few of you. Good, let's talk more about that in a second. Okay, so let's move on. So once we've had time then to assess what needs to be delegated, the next step we're gonna do is we're going to share our intent. So this is the S in ASTRA, share your intent. I like to think of intent like the air we breathe. It is always all around us, but you can rarely see it, you can rarely hear it. Everyone always has intent, and the thing about it is sometimes if you don't know the person's intent, you can take something completely the wrong way, right? Again, going back to people who've had that bad being on the receiving end of delegation, a lot of times what did it feel like to you? Your boss is giving you stuff to what? Busy work, waste your time, it's stuff they didn't like to do. So sometimes sharing that intent of why you're actually giving someone the delegation, why you're actually giving them extra work, will make this whole thing a lot smoother. So here's a brief example of what that might sound like. I believe in you, I believe in your ability to move up, and I want to help you get there. Let's talk about some new responsibilities I can give you to develop those skills. Now, if you were on the receiving end of that, how would you feel about it? Pretty good, right? I mean, who doesn't want to be told basically they're high potential and, hey, I believe in you, so we're going to start, giving you more stuff so we can move you up in the company or at the store. That's fantastic. So again, one of the best ways to start the delegation conversation is always starting with your intent. Like Simon Sinek always says, start with the why. This is the why. All right? Yes, ma'am?
Yeah, okay, so
1 second.
I have a small business.
Okay.
Very small business.
Very small.
At this point, we're probably lower in staff than we have been for a while, but I found there isn't really like room to improve. You want a manager job, then you go somewhere else. So
right.
I did just spend a year and a half training somebody into all of these things, and then they got a job somewhere else.
Yeah.
So the delegation of letting people take over these big pieces of the store, that's not investment in my company. That's investment in somebody else's company.
It can be.
And it's actually investment in the person, because I love Brianna and I'm so happy she got this new job. But it took my company back a few steps that she left.
Yes.
So
So what do you do about that, right?
Right.
So let's talk about Heather's position. I see your hand in the back. Did you have something you want to say about that?
It took me a while to get used to it. Unfortunately, in the toy and game and hobby industry, generally we can't afford to pay our help a lot of money. And at least in my case, a lot of them, we don't hire till 18. So we get typically 18 to 25-year-old kids. Very nice, very good. I've had some amazing employees. And I've had to accept that I will likely only have them 2 to 3 years before they, God willing, move onward and upward in life. But that's where I then learn. I now know better what I'm looking for in my next employees. So yes, it's frustrating. I know I'm training somebody to move on to somewhere else, but I also know better for that next employee what I want. People move jobs all the time. We see it on Wall Street left and right. Sure do. I want the good ones. And if I only have them for a few years, I'm blessed for those few years that I had them.
I love that, Robert. Thank you for that. And yeah, I know it's hard. It's really hard when you invest all this time in someone. But what I will say is, even though they're moving on and they're moving up, you're still getting that time back on your calendar when they are able to do these activities that you're kind of letting go. It's still better than doing it yourself. And I agree. Retail, at JCPenney, we had over 100% turn easily every single year. Good turn for us was 72 in Sephora, and that was our consultants. That's really high. So imagine we're investing about $4,000 worth of training material and time and payroll dollars to get them trained only so they can leave, more than likely within the first 9 months. It's hard. It's hard. But again, the better you, to Robert's point, you get with your sourcing and your recruiting, you're finding the right person, you're able to get these responsibilities, get things off of your plate. Yeah, to some extent, you might be training them to move on, but is that really their fault if you don't have a position for them to move up into? And could you do something, maybe could you create a position that is slightly higher to where that you could keep them a little bit longer? Maybe a senior consultant or a senior sales associate, whatever it might be. Did you have a thought?
Also, if you're known for mentoring or being a nice place to work, then word gets out. I'm in a college town, so sometimes I'll hire a freshman and they'll work all 4 years, and it's great. So it goes both ways.
And you get the cream of the crop wanting to work for you. Absolutely. That's true. That's true. Okay, so that was sharing your intent. For the sake of time, we're going to move on. The next one is the T. This is where you need to talk about expectations. And this is a deal breaker if you don't do it right. Some of you have already called out the things that go wrong, meaning maybe you're left out of the loop, right? Or decisions are made without you. They take it a bit too far. Maybe you didn't want them to hit the enter button on that purchase order, and they did. So this is where you've told them now why you're going to delegate to them. Now we're going to tell them what exactly you want to see. Have you ever worked for a boss who knew what they wanted but didn't tell you? How frustrating is that? Yeah, I did that. I feel like I've worked for every boss like that. So the first thing is, think about what you want. If you know what you want, write that down and convey that to the person. Because a lot of times you may not know what you want. You're truly open to however they're going to get there. You just know what the end product needs to be. But if you know the steps you want them to take, give them the steps. Save everyone some time. What else do you think we need to talk about when we're setting expectations? Shout it out. The why. Yes, why are you having them do this? So not only why I believe in you, I want to invest in you, but why is this important to the business? Why am I even having you take the time to do this? What else? Time. Yeah, how much time do you have? Do you have 2 minutes, 2 days, 2 weeks, 2 years? Time's a big one. What else? Teamwork, yes. Is this an all or nothing thing, or do you have other people you can rely on? In that same realm, I like to talk about team members who might be helpers or roadblocks. This is sometimes more of a corporate thing where there's politics involved. But I will tell you, sometimes if you have someone, you're like, okay, you're going to get a hiccup here. Here's what's going to happen. Just, have a heads up on that. So give them the heads up on other team members that could help or hurt. What else? Priorities. What is really important to you, or maybe what needs to come first, second, third. Like milestones and deliverables, yes. What else? How about span of responsibility? Meaning, let's go back to that example of maybe hiring someone new for your team. Maybe that's not something you want them to have the entire responsibility for. Could you get them a smaller piece of it? Maybe so. They need to know that, right? Maybe the purchase order, again, I want you to enter in this purchase order. I basically want you to copy what was done last month, or am I having them to create a whole new one with new items? Who knows? But they need to know their scope of responsibility. Where does it start and end? So let's talk about an example there. Here's an example. This would be for someone who is probably that middle dog, the middle basset hound, where they have some experience. Maybe they're not really tenured, but they're also not brand new. Let's say next week, Susan, who is your boss, she needs an update on product X. I'll be on vacation. This week, before I go on vacation, put together a written summary you can share with her when I'm out. This would normally be your responsibility, but you're delegating it. We'll review it before I go out on vacation. We're also going to do a practice run, so you get to practice on me to be sure you're ready. And then you'll present it to her next week. Does that sound good? So it makes sense, right? Is this person getting to go into your boss's office and basically just talk about whatever the heck they want? No. You're going to have that control. You're going to be in the loop. You're going to know exactly what they're going to say because they're going to have it on paper, right? And by the way, you're delegating that part too, so you don't have to create the summary yourself. They're creating that. You can give them feedback on how to make that better. Then they're going to do the practice run on you as well. And then when you're out in Cancun drinking it up on the beach, that's when they can do the presentation to Susan. Make sense? Okay, so let's do one for you guys. This next one, you've decided to delegate the sourcing and screening of your next hire to your most tenured subordinate. This will be their first time ever participating in an interview process. They've never done this before. What expectations do you need to set? Now, first of all, let's clarify. Did you notice they're not actually hiring the person? They're just sourcing, they're finding candidates for you, and they're doing a phone screen. Can this person do a basic, should they even take up your time to interview them is basically what this person is doing for you. Would that be helpful for you? Yeah. Absolutely, right? Please pre-screen my people so I don't have to pull someone in and take 30 minutes of my day to find out they're not even available on the day I need, right? So I want you to talk with your table again. I'm going to give you about 2 or 3 minutes. I want you to think through what expectations you would want to set for your most experienced subordinate so they know exactly what to do and how to do it. Go for it. Okay, now have your attention back to the front of the room.
Okay, I'm ready.
Miss Jacqueline's going to be my microphone runner now. Okay, did you all have some discussion over here? Do you want to start your table? Let's have the discussion over here. So what are some of the items that you would want to make sure you tell this person to set expectations before you just set them loose?
Well, we thought maybe you should ask that employee to tell you or write up what you think is important about working for me, like what that person needs to convey to this possible hire. What does it take to work at my toy store?
Absolutely. I love that too because it's taking it a step further. They're actually having to think like a hiring manager, right? So it's kind of the strategy behind it in addition. Very nice. Did you guys up here come up with anything? Yeah. What else you got?
Having a professional attitude. Yeah, kind of that. Because a lot of the younger people don't know how to use phones and stuff like that these days. It's pretty ridiculous. But yeah, being professional.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I'm hearing primarily telling them exactly, either having them come up with a list of what they're actually sourcing and screening for, or if not, just telling them outright, right? Okay, so let's pretend you told them what they're looking for. What else do they need to know to be successful at this?
Your expectations.
Okay, tell me more about that.
I'm coming.
Your expectations is what she said.
Yeah, your expectations. So what kind of person you're looking for, and how you assess that on a phone interview. So,
okay.
Yeah.
So here's the qualities you're looking for, and here's how you know if it's good or bad, right? Yeah. Absolutely. Availability, yes, if you have specific things, right? It kind of goes into that category of what you're looking for, but yes, that's usually a key one. They need to be able to work every day of the week, all the time. Nights and weekends, especially Saturdays. They prefer Saturdays. Yes.
They've got to be able to keep their commitment. If it's a part-time or if it's a semi, and it's not full-time, that's fine, as long as they can keep their commitment and be there when they tell you that they're going to be there.
Right. So don't be thinking it's willy-nilly. We can just kind of do this like shifting thing. It's like when you say you're going to be there, be there. So maybe a flexible schedule is not necessarily something you're looking for. They need to know that. What else in the back?
You want in our case, we have my assistant manager, Sean, does my interviews for me, and he sets an expectation for what we expect. Oftentimes, and I'm sure a lot of us hear from, customers, what a cool place this would be to work. And I tell them the active verb there is work. Sean has since asked customers or asked interviewees, what do you think the coolest part of this job is? And we get all kinds of things. His answer was the best. I laughed out loud when I was sitting in on an interview. He says, nope. Coolest thing about this job, you get to watch your friends play games. You don't play while you're on the clock. Stops them dead cold because a lot of them think all we're doing is playing
games. Yeah, you're like, yes, right answer.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Good. So we've talked about what they need to know then, what they're looking for, your expectations of kind of what answers they should be hearing, things like, availability. Do we also need to tell them how many candidates maybe you want to talk to in person? Okay. How long do you have? Do you have a week? Do you have 2 weeks? Yeah, because if you're starting from scratch, if you don't have a lot of applications to just pull from, they might have to actually go out and hit some stores to find people, right? We can kind of steal over. So yeah, how long do you have? What other logistical things might you need to tell them? How much you get paid? Yes, how much do you get paid? A lot of people won't ask it outright, but a lot of people will. And so you need to not only tell them what they're going to get paid, but also do you want them answering that question on the phone? Maybe is that a dequalifier for you? If they ask about pay right out, is that a bad thing for you? Who knows? So yes, are y'all kind of getting the point here of all the expectations you would want to set? Is this person hiring the person? No. Absolutely not, right? This is just a phone interview at this point. Now, that being said, you absolutely could have them take this to the next level if this is someone who's been with you forever and is basically your right-hand person. They absolutely could do the entire full hiring if you choose to let them. I think, Dean, you probably have people who get pretty close to that, right? You're the final approval? Yeah, so you have people like Dean who basically are like, I don't even want to see him until you think it's the perfect candidate, and then I will say yes or no. So you could let it get that way too. Now let's just say this is someone you've had, this is, newbie, been in your store for a week. You need to hire people and you need to do it fast. What is some component of this same activity you could assign to Susie? Small, think small.
Finding out availability and how many hours they're looking for,
Yep.
The basics, if they would.
Absolutely. They can still do basic phone screening. They could give you their friends, right? Who are some people they can refer to you? Yes.
My wife is very nitpicky, and I don't blame her about you didn't fill out the application completely.
Bye.
You are out.
Yep. And your newbie could absolutely look for applications and just trash the ones that don't apply. Yes.
People that come in, that bring their resume in and they're in ripped jeans.
Oh yes.
That drives me nuts.
Yeah, maybe that bad appearance when they come in. They didn't even take it seriously enough to actually dress well to bring in the application. Absolutely. So think about it this way. Think about your basset hounds. no matter what end of the spectrum you are on, you can absolutely find a way to delegate most everything in some way, shape, or form. Okay? All right, and I lost my clicker. There it is. Let's move on to the next one, R. R stands for release, control, and be open. Now, for those of us that are business owners and have a very set way of doing things, this can be hard, right? Because you want it done a certain way. So if you are truly giving them something that can be done in whatever way they choose, let them know that. If for some reason you're not giving them something and it has to be done in a certain procedure, let them know that too. But if you are giving them the liberty of doing it the way they see fit, please be big enough to take a step back and let them do it. Because there is nothing worse than being micromanaged, right? Anything else you'd want to add on this one about releasing control and being open? Yes?
I remember years ago I told them and the first time I went to the Gamma Trade Show, which is in Vegas, back in '97, and it was very hard to leave my assistant manager with the keys. I'd never been away from the store, and it dawned on me, what's the worst that could happen? I've got a $2 million umbrella insurance policy. If the place burns down, floods, get robbed, if he decides he hates me and backs up a U-Haul truck and steals everything, I mean, really, what's the worst that could happen? Go away, take vacation. My customers are always shocked when they hear, like my wife and I are out here in Pittsburgh. We're going to Europe in a couple of weeks for 2 weeks on a cruise, and then we're going to Disney World in September because Galaxy's Edge. And they're like, really? You can do that? I'm like, yeah, we get sick in vacation time, just like you do in your real world job.
Yeah.
This is a real world job.
It's a real world job.
You have to lay off and realize what is the worst that can happen, and is it really that bad? I would kind of like to have the store burned down because all the mistakes I'd like to start over with. No. I'm sure we all have ideas of things that, man, if I could just do that different, I'd start over from scratch.
Yeah.
No, don't burn my store down.
Yeah, that's not a request. That's not a request.
arson.
Thank you. That's a good point. And I really think that same question, what's the worst that could happen, is really a question we should be asking ourselves about a lot of things in life, right? Even when we're letting fear hold ourselves back from trying new things. I mean, really, what's the worst that could happen? What's the worst that could happen? Could I embarrass myself? Yes, absolutely. Am I going to die? No. So that's a really good point. All right, last step of the ASTRA delegation process is asking how it's going and assessing the outcome. Now, the asking how it's going is really imperative to being kept into the loop, to not being left out of the game, because you want to have times where you're going to be checking in with this person. If you don't check in, there's a very good possibility things are going to go off the rails. So let's go back to our example of giving your subordinate the responsibility of sourcing and screening candidates. Let's say you gave this person 2 weeks. What's a realistic time frame that you might want to ask for how it's going? 1 week into it? Absolutely, maybe in a few days. 20 minutes, sorry, yeah. But definitely 1 weekend, if you're only giving them 2 weeks. At 1 week, you're probably doing a check-in, saying, okay, what's going on? Who do you have? How's it going? What are you finding? Okay? And then at the very end, let's say we're at the very end of this activity, we want to assess how it's going and how it went, right? What did they learn from it? Why is this part so important?
That's how you grow.
That's how you grow. It's funny, as a trainer, when I'm developing training for businesses like yours, I'm always writing in an activity. At the end of that activity, I'll write in what we call a debrief, right? Just like the military, you get debriefed. Because the debrief is where the learning takes place. And there are 3 questions I almost always use that I'm going to give you today because I think they're great questions to really encourage learning to happen. And those questions are, what went well? So again, picture you're having a conversation in your office. This is after the delegated thing was completed. You're asking this person, what went well? Why is this an important question?
It gives them a success.
Yes, it absolutely it gives them a chance to call out what their successes were. These are also the things that probably came naturally to them too, right? Like, oh, it was really easy to get on the phone and call people. It was really easy to find people to interview. Kind of the things that are just their natural abilities, right? The next question, though, was what didn't go well? What was difficult? Why is this an important question to ask?
They might tell you something that you have no idea.
No idea. That's right. You have no idea. Maybe they had a really big struggle doing the things that they made look easy, right? Or maybe something went wrong and you didn't even know about it, but now you do, so that's good, right?
Now you maybe discovered a weakness that your employee has you didn't know about.
Exactly. Helps you to discover weaknesses you might not known about. And now maybe this is the area typically that you might want to help them develop even further if necessary, right? Because maybe it just didn't come naturally to them. Last part is where, to me, this is the golden question. What would you do differently next time? From a learning point of view, what does this question give you? Finds out if they were thinking, right? What else? So I heard you're developing a standard of how to do the process in the future. That's a great point. I was just talking to Joanne, right? We were talking about how it's really tough for business owners to document your processes. I mean, truth be told, how many of you have an operations manual going at home? See, exactly, because most of us don't think about documenting processes. To your point, this is a great way of starting to document how things are going, maybe putting a process together for someone else to use next time, and makes it easier for you to delegate as well, right? Yes, ma'am.
I think it can also give us a chance.
I think it also gives us a chance for the staff members to share with us their interest in development. I may have a fabulous, fabulous person on the floor, and that's what they love to do. Maybe after trying some additional tasks and having this follow-up time, maybe that person says, you know what, thanks for letting me assist with the hiring process, but I really prefer to be over here. And that's okay.
That's okay.
It's good to know that.
That's a great point. Maybe giving them responsibility helps you help them deselect. Yeah. Do you know how I realized I wanted to start my own business? I got to a position realizing I didn't like managing people. I like doing the work. I like doing stuff like this. I didn't want to have to manage a team of 10 people who did the stuff that I like to do. I wanted to do the stuff. So I completely get what you're saying. Sometimes that promoting someone up or actually delegating to develop them into the next role helps them realize, you know what, not for me. And that is perfectly fine. That is okay. One more comment in the back.
Well, on that, have you read the book about the Peter Principle?
The which one?
Peter Principle.
I haven't.
You're promoting people past their point of effectiveness.
Past the point of effectiveness.
Sometimes you give them a job where in corporate, and I worked Walmart for 7 months of hell, so I get it. Yeah, it was horrible.
Got the t-shirt.
But you can promote somebody where they're really good, maybe as a store manager, and in corporate America, it's, oh, well, they're going to be a good district manager.
Exactly.
That's not necessarily the case.
We always assume that if you're a great independent contributor, you're going to be a great manager, and that's not necessarily the case. So I love what you're saying there because that's a really valid thing. Sometimes you're doing the biggest gift, going back to your point, Heather. I mean, sometimes you're giving them a gift of giving them responsibilities because you're just helping them make better life choices later. Maybe because of you and other things that you're giving them, you're saving them 2 years of a horrible job because they realize they don't want to do something.
Well, you'll end up then probably firing because they're now no longer doing a good job.
Could be the same. Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
On that token, I face this a lot with my staff, where they'll complain about another staff manager saying that he doesn't do this, he doesn't clean up well enough, he doesn't whatever. And I say always, you know what though? He is so great with customer service that I look away on that. And when we know he's not very good at displaying, then let's let somebody who's really good at displaying do it while he does the good customer service.
Right, playing to
And
the
everyone
strengths.
wins.
And that's a good thing too, right? Playing to someone's strengths, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. So speaking of that, here's where we went today. We talked about why we don't delegate and the benefits of delegation. We talked about the ASTRA process. We practiced our skills a little bit with our table. And let's talk about how we can take this home. On your table, you have a little card. Looks like the blue duck with the yellow ducks. On the back of that is my information if you ever need me, but also places for you to write your key takeaway. I would love for you to write down the one thing you're taking away that really made the most impact on you and what you can do immediately when you get back home to implement that. Because I gotta tell you, as a trainer, I know that at least half of what we talked about today will be in one ear and out the other if you don't put it into use. So I would love for you to write down your biggest takeaway, the one thing you want to remember, as well as how you can implement it when you go back home. Give you a couple seconds to do that. Coming on the last few minutes of our time together. All right, Miss Jacqueline. Anyone want to volunteer to share what they wrote down? Not everyone at once. Right here. Yes, thank you.
So I'm going to really work on providing clearer expectations while releasing control, because I feel like that I am not a micromanager, but I get so wrapped up in what I'm doing that I just sometimes don't even think that I can be letting a staff member help me by taking on some of the tasks that I would normally be doing. So, letting them know that they're helping me.
Absolutely.
And please do this
the way you want to do it.
The way I want to do
Here's
it,
the
or
outcome.
in my time, but the way they want to do it.
I love that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Anyone else?
I said putting a little bit more trust into my employees.
More trust into the employees. Tell me more about that. What do you mean by more trust? I'll stand really close. Yeah, right. I'm not going to lean too close into you, but I'll stand close to you. Even better.
Putting more trust into them, once I give them a task to do, explaining it as thoroughly as I can, and then trusting them to actually complete the project.
I like that a lot. Yeah. Trust is hard.
Yeah.
But what's great about this whole process, once again, is remember, this does not have to be an all or nothing sort of thing. You can really baby step into this. So if you want to just start with the very, very bare basics, like we talked about, the newbie who's just looking over applications to make sure they are filled in correctly, right? That is bare basics. Start there and then baby step into the big stuff so you can build that trust, right? You don't have to just roll the dice and hope for the best. One more. Anyone? What you gonna take back? Go back.
We're getting ready to open a second store in a couple months, and again, distancing myself, I'm going to have to. We want to do stores 3, 4, 5, and 6 down the road in the next 10 years. And more, I realize I can't be everywhere at once. And as I mentioned, ownership OCD, I got to let it go. If they've got the product out and the customers are buying it, does it really matter if it wasn't exactly merchandise how I want? Exactly. As long as the customer can find it and they're happy, at the end of the day, it's all that matters to me.
I like that a lot. Knowing that you just need to control what you truly need to control and let go of the rest, right? Very nice. Thank you so much for that. All right. Last but not least, you have my information. Here it is again. I would love to hear your feedback about this session. I would love to see you again next year in Orlando. So please keep me in mind. Let me know. By the way, if you text in today, that's actually a text to me. You can text what kind of session you would want to hear about next year. So I would love to hear that in addition to you doing it in the survey. Again, thank you so much for attending today. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.